Oh, it was all that. He was, yeah. Okay, so you basically. Yeah. I got a long way to go. Right. No, because that's blocked. You want us to make a better route?
Oh, I don't know.
Should we make a better route for her to get up there? Just go across.
Oh,
Probably wouldn't hurt.
Should I take the whole row?
How do you go back?
Okay. Just hold it up. When you're ready.
3 minutes. I've got a new camera taking photo. Yes, we're ready, huh? Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our forum for the school board candidates.
Mike's not on. Mike's not on.
Turn your mic. You're just want me to yell. Try again. Welcome, everybody, to our forum for Mount Vernon Schools, school board candidates. I'm Marty Hurst. I'm co-chair of the Mount Vernon Lisbon unit of the League of Women Voters of Lynn County. The League is a nonpartisan political organization for women and men which encourages informed and active participation in government. We offer a voice for all and every opinion that's out there. The League conducts both candidates and legislative forums as part of its voter education efforts to help voters make informed decisions in upcoming elections. Back when the League of Women Voters started over 100 years ago, that's one of the reasons the League of Women Voters was put into place, was that when women got the vote, they had really not had access to information and news and ideas about candidates. It's one of the reasons it got started, to provide that education. We've got so much information now, but anyway. Our goal is to provide opportunities for our communities to ask their candidates questions in person. I mean, we're so lucky here. I said you can talk to people at the grocery store, up at Fuel, wherever you want to see people. So we're pretty lucky. Over the course of the forum, you will learn more about each candidate and what they hope to do for the students here and the families of Mount Vernon. And at this time of extreme polarization politically, we offer an opportunity for civil discourse, one of my favorite terms. Civility begins with human interaction, and in full disclosure, I'm a retired social worker. So in a social working way, please turn to someone next to you, a friend, a neighbor, especially if it's someone that you don't know, and introduce yourself to them. Say hello. Okay.
Hi there. Someone I don't know. Bob helps Hi, Bob helps you. Nice to meet you. Superintendent, right? Nice to meet you.
I signed up.
Okay, now we're
I was in my first year here, and then I was in a conversation.
I lost control of the classroom. This forum is being live streamed with the help of the Mount Vernon School staff on the Mount Vernon Mustangs YouTube channel. And in a few days, we'll try, oh gosh, we're not technologically very expert in my age range, but we're going to try to put it on our Facebook page, but it will be on the Mount Vernon YouTube channel. So I'm going to turn this forum over to our moderator. This is Carol Woods-Bourne. She's a longtime Mount Vernon community member and worked for the school for many years and a member of the Mount Vernon Lisbon unit of the Linn County League. So thank you for being here tonight. Carol?
Okay, welcome to the forum, and thank you to all the candidates for giving us your time tonight so people can get to know you. We have kind of a unique situation this year with 2 candidates will be on the ballot, and we have a sample ballot back there. And then we have room for write-ins, and we have a total of 3 open positions, right? So when you are writing in, I just looked this up tonight to make sure. It doesn't have to be spelled exactly how it is, but they have to be able to recognize that was your intent. See here. I think he also has cards back there. Another thing to remember on the write-in, you still have to fill in the little circle. If you don't, they won't count the vote. So that's, pass that on to people. They'll think, well, I wrote it in. If you don't do that little circle, I work the polls and they just told me that it doesn't count. So make sure that you do that. Let's see. Each candidate will have an opening statement for a minute and a half, talking about topics that are important to them in this campaign. As the moderator, I will then ask questions that were submitted by people online or in attendance here tonight. And then each candidate will have a minute and a half to respond. We'll just start on that end of the table and come this way, and then on the second question, we'll start with Maggie, and then on the next one, we'll start with Tim. And I have a thing here that I should be able to keep track of. Let me know if I miss anybody. So when you are speaking, we have timers here in the front. Kind of pay attention to their fun little tabs there, They'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left, and 15 seconds left, and then there is a stop. And don't cut off in the middle of your sentence. Go ahead and finish the sentence, but if you didn't get in some information that you wanted to, we will stop you. But everyone will also get a closing statement. So if in the close you want to readdress, I just want people to know this was my stand on that or whatever. But try and wrap it up, and then we'll move on to the next candidate. We don't allow any personal references about any of the other candidates. The audience is invited to submit questions during the whole thing if you think of something new. Raise your hand and we'll have someone bring you a piece of paper to write it on, then raise your hand when you're done and they'll give it to our sorters back there. Please turn off the cell phones and try and be quiet and listen to them. We ask that you treat all the candidates fairly. After all the closing statements, you can applaud, but we really don't want to have applause after each one talks. So we might not get all of the questions in. Hopefully the candidates can stay if there's something in particular your question didn't get asked or you didn't quite understand that they were what they were saying.
Does anybody have any more questions now? Just hold them in the air and pick them up.
Yep. We'll have people come around to you. Make sure you got everything. Oh, no campaign literature, no signs, no cheering from the crowd. So other than that, I think we're ready to start. And we will start with your opening statements. And Rick, why don't you go ahead and do the first one here?
Okay. Now, all of these mics are live, and I would ask the audience, for all of us here, since we're all not professional commentators, to let us know if we're too close or too far away, so we get it done right. Thank you, first of all, to the League of Women Voters for conducting this. It gives us an opportunity to meet you and you get a chance to meet us. I would also like to thank Paul Fugate for helping with the technical issues. He has been a marvelous addition to Mount Vernon, and just for these purposes only, but he's also a great asset to us in terms of what he does for the school as an associate. So real quickly, what I am, I grew up on a farm and I graduated from Fort City High School, a school and community comparable to Mount Vernon in the 1950s and 60s. I graduated from Iowa State in 1971. I taught public school at Northland and Lincoln of Stanwood in the 70s. For nearly 30 years, I was a coach in the Mount Vernon district. My wife Trudy and I now, we've lived in Mount Vernon over 50 years. We raised our 3 sons, Jeremy, Patrick, and Michael, who all benefited greatly from their education here in Mount Vernon Community School. We also had 4 grandchildren who have gone to school here, 2 of which have graduated from college. And okay, I can use the rest of my closing statement.
That 2 minutes goes pretty fast. My name is Maggie Hartzler. I am a mother to 3 kids in the district. My oldest is in 5th grade and then 3rd grade in kindergarten, and we had some conferences today, and I'm always so amazed every time I go and talk with their teachers about the incredible work that they're doing. They have 2 new curriculums that they're doing this year, and they were passionate and they were excited, and they were talking about the ways that they were helping my kids go through these different curriculums, and I know that that's probably really hard for them. So I'm always walking away with those things feeling so excited about how well loved my kids are when they're at school. The other thing about me, though, is I'm a therapist and a social worker, actually a licensed social worker. Most people call me a therapist, but I like social worker. And I've worked at the same nonprofit in Cedar Rapids at Tanager for almost 20 years. And obviously when I say that, I heard thank you very much for that. Oh, yes, I was a baby when I started. But in that work, I've done a lot of work with helping kids, helping families, and trying to create systems that help kids be really well and help communities be well in turn. And so when I saw that there was not a 3rd person on the ballot, it felt like something that I have some talents and some gifts and some passion for helping kids and helping communities. And I'm really excited to get to talk with all of you tonight about what that might look like if I was on board. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Rick said it, but thanks to League of Women Voters for putting this on. And my name's Tim Keegan, live south of Mount Vernon with my wife Abby, have an 8th grader, Bo, and a senior Caleb. I farm full-time with my family. Grew up outside Cedar Rapids, went to Cedar Rapids, Kennedy, Iowa State, my master's at Kansas State, worked for a large company for a while before I came back. So I've had the opportunity the last year and a half to serve on the board. When I did this last time, I'll be very honest, and I said it then, I'm not an expert in education. In fact, I've learned a lot, but I think that's what has allowed me to look at things from a 10,000-foot view. And one of the things that is most important for me is just transparency and asking questions and trying to understand by asking questions, everybody gets a better understanding of what's going on. And so that's one thing I try to do in meetings, whether it be in our work sessions or board meetings, just try to ask questions and be as transparent as possible. That's one of my goals. And the other goal is I want to make sure we're preparing kids, not just if it's a 4-year university, if they're going straight into the workforce, anything. And so that's a huge passion of mine to make sure that we're teaching all levels of different things, whether it be financial literacy or things that people can use from day one as soon as they step out of these doors. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Kara Steinman. Thanks for having me tonight. I am from Mount Vernon. I grew up, was raised here. I graduated in 2007. I still live here with my 3 kids and my husband, Zach. I have a kindergartner, 3rd grader, and 5th grader. So we're very busy with their activities. After I graduated here, I went to Kirkwood, got my nursing degree, worked in a variety of nursing roles, went to Mount Mercy, got my bachelor's and my master's in nursing education. Worked in leadership. I managed a pediatric clinic, and now I work as the Associate Dean of Nursing at Kirkwood, and I'm loving that role. A lot of my role is managing people and managing student concerns. So I get to see the students after they leave the high school arena and come into higher education. I've seen the trends of how students are coming to us, and so I'd like to see what we're doing to support those students. And like he said, I'm really interested in pursuing those career and technical education opportunities. How are we preparing our students for the next step as they leave our doors? I would say I don't have strong opinions. I'm here to listen and kind of base my thoughts on the feedback and what I feel is best for the community and our students.
Hi, my name is Vernon. I'm a write-in candidate. I'm one of those Iowa captives. I'm not a native. I moved here about 20 years ago to go to Cornell and married a local and been here ever since. I worked in biotech for a few years after Cornell and then decided I wanted to be my own boss. So started a few entrepreneurial ventures. Started a photography business, which evolved into a marketing business, which then naturally evolved into an aircraft detailing business. I've done that the longest until a few years ago when I decided I wanted to go back to school. So if everything goes well in May, I'll get a law degree from Iowa. So that's my current thing. I work as the director of process development at a different company where I teach grown-ups and some very young grown-ups how to do various tasks. School board wise, the things I'm most interested in learning more about how we address it involve the use of AI. So the legal field certainly has its issues with AI. I want to make sure our students understand their legal rights. So not just their Miranda rights, but their rights as employees, because everyone's going to have a job, everyone's going to be signing contracts. So I think we can maybe squeeze some of that in. And then finally, as you can guess, I'm kind of passionate about entrepreneurism, and if students want to go that route, I want to make sure that they know that that's an option as well. So that's, yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Okay. We'll start with the questions, and the first one, we'll start with Maggie. We'll have you talk first, and we'll keep sliding around who does it first. And some of the stuff that maybe you weren't able to say in your opening statements, you might get a question on it, so they'll be able to fill out what people want to find out about you. Okay, this question is, what do you see as the purpose of public education?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I think public education actually serves a lot of different purposes. Like you've heard from different candidates that there's a lot of different ways that we want to prepare our young people for the real world. And education certainly does that and is designed to do that and should be doing that. But I also think public education also has to really, really care for kids and their whole being. We are not just learners, we are not just doers. We're whole humans with emotions and feelings and hearts. And so part of public education is also teaching kids how to be that whole person, how to manage your emotions, how to get along with others, how to navigate conflict. And I think one of the things that I've seen in this district is that there's a lot of care and time and energy put into making sure that our learners can do some of that work. Because if we're not like emotionally well and whole and able to take care of ourselves as humans, we're not able to go and have a job and do that work as well as we could if we were well and whole in our heart, in our soul, in our emotions, in our minds. And so obviously that's like a little bit of my therapeutic lens, but we really do want people to be fully prepared to go into the world and I think contribute to it in a way that is healing rather than harming, right? I think at its core, we want humans to leave our space where they're going to contribute in a way that's really positive.
I think the question asked public education, but I'd say all education, whether it's public or private, is the same thing. As we look, especially as a parent, you're able to look back and see how your kids have matured and grown. And much to what Maggie said, I think the social aspect is just as important as some of the learning aspects. But to me, that's the main purpose is to help develop people, help develop them to succeed in the future. And that might look a lot of different ways. And so that's where it comes. We have to be adverse in how it's not a cookie cutter type approach. We have to be able to recognize what does this individual need to be able to succeed in the future. And to me, that's the biggest goal is understanding that and then try to work towards finding goals or finding solutions for that individual. So to me, that's the biggest thing is making sure we're preparing kids for the future. And that's the point of our education system.
It's hard to be the next one in line. I repeat of what they already said, but what first came to mind was having the set curriculum so that all students are learning all of these different topics. When I think about my own kids, they'll come home and tell me something that they learned that I never knew. And without our educators, there'd be a massive gap in our students and the growth. I think that the purpose of public education is to meet the needs of the community and meet the needs of the student or the person to be successful and support themselves as they move through life.
So I think we've evolved from the original, we're gonna get you a job so you can pay taxes and be a good citizen, right? You can learn so much online. You can learn different jobs online entirely, where I think we need to shift our focus to allowing our students to learn how to learn, and be able to kind of plot their own course out in the world. I think the more important thing that we can teach here is to teach students how to be critical thinkers and use logic, because ultimately we'd like them to be engaged and intelligent citizens as well. If we have smart people leaving here, then they're going to vote well. They're going to, especially with AI and just like all of the information, good or bad, that's out there. Let's really focus on how do our students interpret that data, and are they critical thinkers? Are they using logic? I think all of that's kind of more important. I also think school is a great time for them to try different things that they may not be interested in. I was thinking today that from a high school photography class, I've made more money than I have from my college degree, because that was an interest that I learned about in school and I was able to pursue it. So I think it's also a great time for them to just learn about themselves and see what they're interested in.
All these folks up here are very articulate and said all the good stuff. What I would add, I think, is that public education offers a structure to become good people. And that, I think, is maybe our most important thing, is to provide the place, and the personnel, and the structure to grow up to be a good person.
And that's why we changed the first person who starts to steal all the thunder from everyone else in the group. Okay, our next question is, and this will be for Tim to start, how do you differentiate yourself from the other candidates?
That's a tough question because there's several individuals that I don't know very well that are sitting up here, so it's hard to say how I differentiate myself. But I think I would go back to say that I'm very good at looking at things from a 10,000 foot view, and I use that term a lot. Try not to get too wrapped up in the details, but you take all the different personality tests over the years and everything that I have, and futuristic is one of them that always pops at the top, because I always look at things, I try to look at things 3 steps ahead. This is happening now, what's going to happen down the road? And so that's allowed me, in my personal life to just try to look past today, look to tomorrow, look at trends and try to understand trends and what's going on with the trends that we're talking about today, and what decisions are we going to have to make tomorrow. And again, I go back to just asking questions. try to gain as much understanding as possible. That's one thing that I've strived to try to do. And sometimes I might think I know the answer, but the person next to me doesn't. It's good that somebody's asked the question so that everybody understands. So, that's probably the biggest thing that I'm not knowing to compare, but looking at things very futuristically has allowed me in my personal life to try to understand what we need to be doing today for tomorrow.
I agree, this is a hard one to answer. I think we're all gonna come to this with different strengths in different areas. For me, I have managed a lot of people, and so I know that there's two sides to everything. I like to listen, hear as much as I can, get a consensus of what's going on, and then pull in some data and different things. Over this last year, I joined the school advisory board, and that was I loved that because I got to learn the why, and I got to learn some of those details about why the school district is doing the things that they're doing. You hear things out in the community, and then you find out, oh, okay, this is actually what's going on. So getting as much information as you can, listening to people, and then making the best decision that you can for the community and students. I do have the education background, so I'm seeing the trends in the students as they come to higher education. And I have kids in the district, so I have that passion for our district to do well.
Difficult question. So 3 hours ago, I was in a classroom as a student, struggling with maybe some of the same issues our students have here, dealing with AI in an educational context and things like that. I think something else that sets me apart, I've used my formal education, I've done the degree thing, but I've also personally and seen other people kind of achieve success without using their traditional degree or by having a more open mindset on what they can do with their lives. So I think I have an appreciation for both. Obviously, I'm in a very formal education process now, but I've spent a lot of time not doing that as well. That's a good start here.
The one thing I offer that none of the rest of the people here offer is the fact that I'm old. I have varied experiences, and I listen to what my wife told me. Everyone here has very desirable qualities, and we're lucky to have the folks up here running that we do. If I do have one thing that I try to do, it is to lower the volume in discussion so that everyone gets a chance to participate. I'm much more flexible than I was 30 years ago. Not body-wise, but.
So I've been a teenager for almost 20 years, and for a period of about, I think maybe 4 or 5 years, I was a school-based therapist. And so I provided therapy to kids at Roosevelt Middle School in Cedar Rapids. For a little bit of time, I was at Jefferson High School, a very short stint at McKinley, but most of my time was at Roosevelt Middle School in Cedar Rapids. And those kids were some of my favorite humans. But they were also some of the kids who were struggling a lot at school. And so one of the things that I think is unique in my perspective is that I've seen kids who have really struggled at school, and I've seen what has helped them to increase their sense of wellness, their sense of connectedness, their sense of belonging, and seeing how powerful some of those things that we can do at school can be in their lives, and how much of a difference feeling good at school makes for some of those kids. And so I think that Mount Vernon, the reason we moved here is because, in large part, because of the school. Through Tanager, I worked with Mount Vernon, and I saw and heard so many good things happening, and so it's an easy choice for us to move here. But there are kids who struggle wherever you go, and knowing ways that we can influence our school so that all kids can be well and have a better chance of success, we have so much power to do that. So that's something that I feel really passionate about, and I think I would bring that lens to the board.
Okay, the next question will start with Kara. This is, well, in regards to reduced funding, it's kind of a twofold question here. How will you ensure that all students requiring services will get them? And how will you attract and retain talented educators?
Wow, that's a big question. I think on the retainment piece, I think that comes down from leadership and the community and how we're supporting them. I think we have great educators within our district, so making sure that they're well supported. I have good friends that run the WeTap and all the things that they're volunteering their time to do and support them. The funding cutting, I have no idea, I'm gonna be honest. I think that's gonna be difficult to manage. I think it's gonna come down to how do we allocate the funds that are left for us. And I know that there's really strict guidelines on what funds can be used for what things. And so I would probably have to better understand the budgeting piece. But I think that's gonna be an issue everywhere, so I'd like to learn more.
So I also come to this question, not being on the board, so I could be factually wrong here, and there's certainly nuances I'm gonna miss, but I think all three of those, the way I would address that as kind of a business owner and someone with a marketing background is by really promoting our district and making us as attractive as possible. Now, we can't market our way out of this because we can't just draw more people into the district. There's growth issues there, but I think overall, my kind of quick and easy answer would be, let's make sure we're really sharing our wins and sharing what makes our community unique. So at the end of the day, the more kids we get in seats here, that's gonna help our funding. The bigger funding loss issue, unfortunately, seems to be more of a legislative issue. So I just don't know enough about how we can carve around that at this time, but with all of you here, obviously you're voting and continue voting and continue being informed about the issues.
That's kind of an unfair question to ask some of these folks up here because they haven't been involved in the budgeting process. The biggest thing we do around here is, like Martin said, is the marketing. We want to present the best possible product in order to gain whatever, to get the people here that want to bring their kids to school here, that in turn will ensure that we have the money to help make this thing happen. The other, probably the most important thing that we do or have done is to hire the best superintendent that we can find, who's going to make sure that we're operating with the opportunity to put together a very good budget that will allow us to do the things we do. And I think we've done that.
I might be one of the only therapists who likes spreadsheets. So a lot of budgets doesn't actually freak me out at all. I really like to look at numbers and see how budget can be impacted. I am in a leadership position now at Tanager, and a lot of it is budgets. But again, I don't know a ton about the budget and the finances, but I do know a lot about making sure that the dollars that we have are used in a way that's going to have a long-term and strategic impact on kids' wellness and community wellness. When we use our resources to help kids be well, it in turn helps our teachers be well, because when classrooms are really difficult to manage, teachers have a very hard time doing their job. And so when we invest in kids in a way that strategically helps kids be well, it has this ripple effect, I believe. And so I think looking at some things from those lenses can help think about how we're allocating dollars in a really smart, strategic way, and also fiscally responsible way, because I think that we are trusted with dollars when we're making decisions about dollars. There's a lot of people's dollars at play, and so you want to make decisions that respect and honor that trust of people investing in our community.
Excuse me. I think the first part of that question is how do we attract and obtain talented educators? And one thing, we have a tremendous staff here, and I think that we'd love to say that it's because we pay well. Well, I'm not sure you can always say that, but one of my goals has been, I want to make sure we have a management team in place that is allowing that staff to feel appreciated and to have avenues of communication so that they come to work and feel appreciated for what they do. There's a lot of things that we can do that's not monetary. And so that's one thing that I've tried to talk about and focus on. The other thing is, make sure all kids are supported with some of the funding issues. Let's be honest, sometimes we have to make tough decisions, and we've made a lot of them in the last year and a half. But I think as a board member, you have to be willing to make those tough decisions. And I'd love to say that there's always going to be money there, but there's not. So you have to step back and look at it and be willing to make those tough decisions that with the funds that we have, we can't produce more widgets to increase our revenue. That's not possible in the education system. So we have the funds we have to be very critical about how we're using them and making sure that we're doing the best we can with them.
Okay, so let's start with Meredith on this one. How does your background shape the way you would listen to and work with parents, teachers, and students?
Great question. Where do we start? So when you're learning law, you have to look at issues from different sides. And, against my best efforts, there's some retention of that happening, I'm noticing. So issues are usually not that simple. You have to be able to identify your own bias when you come to something and try to understand what is the kind of root concern. So if someone's like, we want guns in the classrooms, do they want guns in the classrooms, or do they have a fear for their children? Because I can relate to that fear. We may just have different ways to get to that core issue. So looking at it from maybe take a step back and figure out where they're coming from, and is it something that we can address, or is it something that we're just gonna have to respectfully disagree about? I think if you disagree with someone, they're gonna feel a lot better if they were heard beforehand. Versus just brushed off as, oh, no, we're the board and what do you know? I don't know much either. So I think having that humility and curiosity to see where someone's coming from. We're all parents and we have a lot more in common than we don't. We all have kind of the same issues when you're raising kids. So I think appreciating that is very important.
What's the question again, Carol?
How does your background shape the way you would listen to and work with parents, teachers, and students?
Having worked in the middle school, having coached kids from the ages of 8 to 18, I've had the opportunity to get to know the kids. And I think if you look at things through the kids' eyes, you get a better understanding of the best way to move forward. And I think I've been able to do that. One of the things I didn't get to have in my presentation was my initial presentation, the fact that I worked in lumber and construction for 40 years. I found that even working with adults, if I kept everything at a middle school level, everybody got along a lot better. And I guess I look at things, I try to put things down on the most basic level that we can get them. Deal with the emotions as emotions, deal with the facts as facts, and move forward.
Yeah, my background is in listening. I do a lot of it and I've done a lot of it. But I think it's helped me a lot moving into a leadership position, because really leadership is a lot of listening. And it's a lot of hearing people's perspectives and their stories. And when you have a community, you have a lot of different perspectives and you have a lot of different people who want a lot of different things. But I think that all humans at their core really want to be seen and to be heard and to feel like they can take care of their kids, that they're safe, that their kids are able to be successful. So I think a lot of things really boil down to some really basic, everybody wants these same things for our kids and for our communities, and it's just listening through some of the noise maybe, and making sure that people really do feel heard. Because when people can walk away feeling heard, a lot of the conflict kind of feels a little bit easier to navigate. So I think therapist hat on really helps a lot. Sometimes it doesn't always help with my kids, to be fair, and to be honest, and oftentimes not with my husband. So, but I feel like outside of there, it's been pretty helpful.
I think I need a background in therapy then. I think, that's a great question, and I think, you have to be available, right? And you have to be there and be willing to have tough conversations with people. Asking questions, I said that it's my main theme, ask them why they feel that way. Ask questions about how did they get to feel that way? When did they feel that way? Why? I think to me, that's how I find out the most is by doing those sorts of activities. And again, just being approachable, I think is another huge aspect that hopefully somebody can, we talked before, somebody can stop you at the grocery store and bring an issue to you and not feel that it's going to come back on them or the community or anybody else in a way, and be trustworthy that, you can handle some sensitive issues and know that it's being handled properly, I guess. So that's just.
Yeah, again, I'm gonna go back to my leadership roles and listening to people. Also, in my background in nursing, been in very emergent situations, code blue team at St. Luke's, and you can kind of put things in perspective that things aren't an emergency, and we can take a deep breath and just listen, hear people out, and then we can make a calm decision. I also feel like I'm just all over Mount Vernon with all my kids' activities. I've probably seen all of everybody between sports and academics and being involved uptown. So just being present and available for people is essential.
Okay, we're back to starting with Rick again. Kind of sounds like a similar question, but I'll let you do a little different here. How would you approach solving complex problems where there might be competing priorities, like budget versus staff needs versus student outcomes?
You really have to weigh all the issues, everything you have, all the things that you have before you. One thing I found, which is really valuable in doing all this kind of stuff is, even though we have the newspaper online now, the Gazette, it's still important to go to Gary's on Sunday morning. That's where I get a lot of the information that helps most of the community, I guess. Tom Weisler and I both have found that 15 to 20 minutes to go in there and buy a newspaper and pop means you're going too fast. You're going to have to spend a little bit more time. That's where the people want to talk. That's where you can find out what's going on that they wouldn't tell you anywhere else. I guess I don't know if that answers any question. Okay.
Will you repeat the question for me?
Sure. How do you approach solving complex problems where there might be competing priorities, like budget versus staff needs or versus student outcomes?
It sounds like that's the work of the board constantly, probably. I feel like being on the board is probably just constant conflict of really complex needs and complex issues that are often in competition for different things. But I think I try to be really centered on my values and stay really centered to my values. And what matters most to me, I think, is kids first. Because I think that that is what makes the rest of it work. And I said this earlier, but when kids are well, teachers' jobs are easier. When teachers' jobs are easier in this district, they talk about it with other educators, with students who are going into the field, and it becomes a place where educators want to come work. And then when educators want to come work here, this is a place to be. It helps the community, and in turn helps our kids. So I think for me, when I look at really complex issues, I try to remember, what is my why? What is my purpose? What is my reason for being here? And what am I trying to stay centered on? And then try to make decisions with that in mind, while trying to balance all of the different data and the different pieces, but really trying to stay connected to that heart piece for me, I think.
After serving for the last year and a half, I think a lot of that comes back to having trust with our administration and know that what's being presented to us, we still have to go with a lot is being, how do I say it, funneled or sifted through before it comes to us. And that's the job of the administration. The board isn't supposed to be sitting here making a lot of the minute decisions. So I think the biggest thing is having a good working relationship with our administration to know that the information that's being presented to us to make the decisions, know where their stance is, why they feel that way, ask those questions, why they think that's the best route to go. So to me, that's the job of the board. And that's where I think when you have those tough decisions, we have to follow essentially the chain of command, right? And we have to make sure that we're not overstepping our boundaries as a board either, so.
Yeah, I think research as much as you can, wherever you can. And then for me, relying on previous board members that have been doing this for longer than I have, to give some guidance, talk to our educators, talk to the community, and try to get as much information as you can. And like she said, you have your values and you stick with those values and try to make the right decision.
So I think as a board, we have a fiduciary level of duty of care to our students and a duty of loyalty. And I think to me what that means is putting in the research to make sure that you fully kind of looked at all sides of the problem, and that, you know, like people said, our students are the outcome, right? So keeping that in mind, I think a lot of times you fall in love with your own solution to a problem, and if you can remove your ego from that to realize that just because I didn't come up with it, it's still a perfectly good solution. I think that can reduce some conflict when you have differing opinions. I think the other, I've been on the fire department for 20 years. I fly very old airplanes, and a lot of times in those situations, when we have a very complex problem, we try and prioritize by what is going to kill me or kill my patient first, and let's mitigate that, and let's work our way down that way. So you may not have to solve it all at once. Let's stop the bleed, or let's do the thing that's going to have the biggest impact. And if that buys us more time, then we can engage in longer discussion and more research and come up with a better solution.
Okay, the next question will start with May. Okay, if you had to choose one topic that is towards the top of your concern list, what would that topic be?
Ooh, this might be a little niche, but I have a 5th grader who got a Chromebook. And he has a Chromebook at home now. And technology is actually one of the things that's like at the top of my list of concerns, in kind of a weird way. Because I think that we can leverage a lot of really cool things with technology. And there's a lot of great ways to use technology in some very cool ways that no other students in history have had. But we also really have to balance that with the emotional wellness of our humans that we're teaching. We know that faces to screens all of the time is not necessarily the healthiest thing for kids. And so we have to balance, how do we use technology in the classroom? How do we use technology outside of the classroom? how much screen time is too much screen time? I think about this a lot because I think about the brain a lot, and I think about how brains are developing a whole lot. And I think that this is something that, I don't know that we're talking about it. I don't know that we're having conversations about it in ways that really look at the long-term impact of our students' wellness on how we leverage technology, both good and bad. So that's a topic that I think I'm concerned about.
Real quick, I think there's the two that come to my mind, but obviously financials, you know, we've been through some tough times. We're going to continue to have tough times. And it's going to create a lot of tough decisions in the future. So we just have to be mindful of that. But on a different picture, I'd just like to mention that, you know, I went to Cedar Rapids Kennedy. I graduated with 450 some students. I told my wife I was not going to have our kids go to a big school. And one of the things that I feel since day one, since we've been part of Mount Vernon, is how the community is involved with the school in every aspect. And that is so important to me, and you don't understand it unless you have it, unless you've seen the other side of it. And I grew up on the other side of it where there's just another number at Kennedy. And so that's something that I will make sure that we never lose, and we're always focused on to make sure that it's more than just this school, it's Mount Vernon and Mount Vernon community together.
I don't have any big issue items that I'm coming into this with. I really think that our educators are doing a great job. I think we have a good district. I think, you know, there hasn't been times where I'm questioning the direction that our district is going personally. So I feel like I would need to learn more about what areas our district is struggling in and how we can improve those areas.
I also worry about technology. I'm excited by it, but I'm also scared by it. I was training this guy, he's probably 19, and we had food, and he got a fortune cookie, and there's no fortune in there. And he's like, what does that mean? And the first thing he did was he put it in ChatGPT, which is not a search engine. It's a very powerful tool, but it's not a search engine. There's so many opportunities that our students are going to have, but we have to be really careful that we don't create intellectual laziness, but we don't want them to be Luddites either. So I worry about the screen time. I have a 6th grader who's probably on a device as we speak and not watching me. So how do we balance that where we teach them the resilience to do the hard work and not just reach for the easy answers, but likewise, when they get out there, I want them to be competitive and know how to use the technology. So where's that balance?
We need to deal with the health and well-being of our kids. And anything and everything we can do to ensure that is my highest priority. We have lots and lots of challenges to make that happen, I guess. Dealing with the technology is one of the things we have to deal with. Dealing with daycare in the community is one of the things we have to deal with. Dealing with affordable housing in the community is one thing we have to deal with. We have so many different things. Maintaining the kind of staff that exemplifies the best possible district. That's something we have to we need to make sure that we're dealing with. But just seriously, the most important thing we have to do is to make sure the kids have a safe place to learn.
Okay, we'll start with Tim on this one. When gathering feedback on proposed policy, how do you prioritize stakeholder input among community members, administration, staff, and students?
Yes, they have to be.
I
was going to say the same thing.
Okay, when gathering feedback on a proposed policy, how would you prioritize stakeholder input among community members, administration, staff, and students?
So if the question is, how I rank those,
I think so.
if that's what it is. I wouldn't. Because I think they're all equal and they all have to play a role in it. I think that, for me, that's a very simple answer there. You know, all those responses and all those opinions have to come together.
I agree. Yeah. I think it depends on what the policy is related to. If it's, if it's related to curriculum, we need to be asking the people that know about curriculum, the staff, the people that are rolling that out and are getting the feedback from the students. So if the policy is in regards to how money is spent, are we asking the right people? Are we asking the taxpayers? I mean, we need feedback from everybody, but I think it depends on the policy that we're looking at. Some have more experience. We need to get that detailed information from the people that are doing the work, or are in the schools, that maybe they're looking at whether to add an extracurricular that we don't currently have. Are we asking the students if there's interest? Are we asking the staff, how that would work? Are we asking the community how that would benefit us? So like you said, there's just going to depend on each policy, but we need the total collection of feedback from everybody.
So, this is gonna sound like a lawyer. I think like the policies should have, like they should be legal, right? So they should not counter, for better or worse, whatever the state and federal law is. And if we then still have latitude to play with, then we need to look at what is the intent of the policy? Does the policy actually cover that intent? Is it ambiguous? Like, can it be misinterpreted? Can it be abused? Can it be exploited? So kind of looking at it from all that boring stuff. But like the hard work before we draft the policy needs to be figuring out why we need the policy. Is this because we have some sort of liability? Is it because we have a opportunity that we can jump on? So like AI could be an opportunity, right? So what is the policy's kind of original purpose? Do we meet that purpose while still being legal compliant? Is it ethical? Is it smart? Does it financially make sense? So yeah, lots of moving factors. I'm not on the board. I don't know how you guys do it, but you seem to do a good job.
You do kind of sound like a lawyer. But that's good. That's good. That's good. One thing that was made very clear to me at my very first board meeting was that the school board members have two responsibilities, and that's all they have. They have a lot of communication situations that they have to be responsible for, but they really only have two things they do. They hire the superintendent, and they set policy. Unfortunately, for the last 10 years, most of our policy has been set in Des Moines. Local rule or home rule is a thing of the past. So everything we do is what we're told to do from Des Moines. And that's unfortunate. That takes away a lot of flexibility. And I see that as one of our challenges down the road that we have to deal with. I think, I can't remember what the question was again.
When gathering feedback on proposed policy, how do you prioritize stakeholder input among community members, administration, staff, and students?
It's all communication, and it's just something that once you're given the policies, you have to deal that out, and everybody gets an equal vote there.
I think impact matters a lot, so kind of looking at the policy and seeing where that impact would land most heavily and making sure that if it's going to land most heavily with educators, we really make sure that we talk with educators and talk about what that impact is going to be for them, how that's going to feel. what things we should be considering. If the impact is gonna really land with kids, we should be talking to kids. I don't know what the board does as far as talking with kids, but I think that's such a powerful way to hear from the people who are most important for the decisions that we make. So as much as we can, when the impact is really heavy in one area, that's a time when you gotta ask more questions and you gotta get more voices to make sure that you're really being aware of how those things are landing. And I think you're right that a lot of decisions are made for us in Des Moines right now, and I think we also have an opportunity to talk about how some of those decisions are impacting and ask questions about how some of those decisions are impacting our students, our educators, and our community, and then turn around and be able to share that information out with our community, because that informs, decisions that are made that influence what's happening in Des Moines as well. So I think it can be kind of cyclical to make sure that the impact is not only heard from by the board, but also then shared out by the board, so the community and other people who need to hear that impact are aware of what we discover.
Marty, does this end at 8? When do we end officially?
8:15 it said. I had to just look at the.
Okay, I was just wondering, I think we can get a couple more questions in.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna start with Kara this time. This is regarding civil liberties. As a school board member, how would you make sure LGBTQ+ students feel welcome?
I think that our students need to not only feel welcomed, but that we want them here. They need to be supported in all areas of their life, not just their academics, but their emotional, they need emotional support. We need to make sure that they have a peer group, and how can we as a community, our school district, support those students to foster those types of relationships. I think as a whole, our school and our community is very welcoming, and we just need to make sure that all of our students and feel that they belong and that we want them here.
To make sure students feel welcome here, I think we need to look at what could cause students not to feel welcome. And just shooting from the hip, I'm thinking either other students, faculty, or staff, or just kind of policies as a whole that we're not aware of. I think we need to be very, very clear through policy and through role modeling that, this is who we are as a community, and we don't tolerate discrimination or even making people feel unwelcome. Like, it doesn't have to be overt discrimination. And then I think it goes back, like this is initially a teacher level if it's a student issue, it's a principal level if it's a staff issue, and it's a superintendent issue if it's higher up. And then knowing that from there on, we're ultimately responsible, but I don't think we're the first line of responsibility. I think all we can do is set the policies that, communicate the message, and from there on, we have our school leadership inform us if there's more that we need to do.
We are, we're a welcoming and inclusive community. I'd like to think that our school district is in the forefront of that, and everyone who's connected with the school needs to work towards that. And I think we do a pretty good job of it. There's always going to be someone that is going to object to some of the things that we do, or what we allow, or what we think is what should be. But those people, I guess I don't have time for those people.
One of the reasons that I was so excited to move to Mount Vernon is because I felt like I was going to be raising my kids alongside people who shared my values. And so the kids who were going to be in my kids' classrooms and be friends with my kids, I felt a sense of peace, and I feel a sense of peace in this all the time. And so grateful for this, that I believe that my kids are friends with kids who have parents who share my values. And that makes a huge difference. And so I think, Rick, you're right, this community is very welcoming and very open and very affirming and I think very loving. And that makes a huge difference. But we do know that the reality for our LGBTQ plus kids is not a sense of altogether feeling a lot of that. In our state, it doesn't feel that way. In our country, it doesn't always feel that way. And so being really intentional about making sure that all kids, regardless of what group you land into, feel like they belong and that they can show up as they are, be seen as they are, and be deemed worthy of being part of this community, being part of this school, just as they are. I think that that is one of the most beautiful things about this community. It's one of the things that I feel just endlessly grateful for, that my kids are growing up with kids whose parents share the values that I have.
To me, the biggest thing is to make sure kids feel safe and safe when they come to school and safe for what they believe in. You know, and trust that our administration and our teachers are also making it a safe environment for kids. And so to me, that's the biggest thing that we can do. Again, I think there's some things that we can do on the board, but there's a lot of things that we can't. Again, I kind of talked about the community involvement, and we have a very open community, and I think that can transpose over into the school when we do have that close relationship with the community and the school district.
You did, she did. I almost skipped you, Tim, I'm really sorry. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. I'm not positive people not on the board will know how to answer this, but I think you will, because you have students here. What are your views on the evidence-based reporting system currently used in our schools, and how do you believe it impacts student learning and communication with families, which I believe is our grading system? So like board members might know ins and outs, but all of you as students in school here should also have some input on it also.
I wonder if this is somewhat like opening up a hornet's nest.
That's why I say this.
Yeah, thanks. So I don't know a lot about it. What I do know is that I don't know if it's controversial, but people don't like it. And I don't know if people don't like it because they don't understand it or because it's generally difficult to deal with. So I've had educators explain it to me that didn't like it and educators that do like it. So there's obviously something there. I just don't know enough about passing judgment on it. I'm trying to learn more about it as well. But I guess that's all I can say about that.
I've been involved in it for the last 6, 7, 8 years, and I still don't understand everything. But what I do know is that the kids learn more. The kids who's gone through the whole system and go on to college, they've been taught to learn. They've learned how to learn. They've been taught how to learn, and that's very important. The ones that have gone on to higher education, gone on to college, they all excel. And I think part of the reason that they are excelling is because they've been taught how to learn what needs to be learned. There is, having been someone who, a teacher who used to grade on a ABC type arrangement, it's very apparent that some kids do very well with that. Some kids, at the time it's time to finish the unit and they haven't gotten the information, they say, well, that's done, I can move on to something else. With the EBR, you get the opportunity to spend a little more time on it, to figure out what it is that you needed to get that was important, and to actually learn what the concepts are. I'm a strong proponent of it, and I hope we continue it. And however the communication needs to be, we need to facilitate that communication, I guess, and make it worthwhile.
Thank you. I also sat on the Student Improvement Advisory Committee, I think is it, SIAC is what I hear other schools call it. And Michelle Boyden actually talked about it at one of the meetings, and I walked away thinking like, that's pretty cool. Michelle did a really good job of explaining it, so maybe we just need to get her in front of people more and have her talk about it. Because honestly, it was really informative, and it helps you understand that this is a process for kids to not hit a grade, but to learn. And I was a kid who was smart at school, and I would get an A and I wouldn't really have to do a whole lot to do it. I don't know that my learning really benefited me a lot. Like I could read something, I could understand it real quick, and then I could regurgitate it on a test. But I don't know that I really learned some of the stuff that I needed to learn. Like physics, I was really bad at physics, but I just like sort of memorized what I needed to memorize that was gonna be on the test, took the test, got a good grade, moved on. I don't know anything about physics. But I can see my kids being learners and not just trying to get a grade, and that's really, really good for them because they're smart kids who I think if they wouldn't have to try very hard to get an A, my two oldest at least. Vernon still have the other one, but I was flying here. But I think that makes a difference. You gotta learn until you get it. That is huge for kids, I think, who are both really smart and kids who are really needing some extra time to learn. So I think it's great.
I'm not sure I have an opinion one way or the other on it, but what I will say is it is an issue that is highly talked about, and a lot of people have approached me about it. And when I go back to them and say, you know, I think it started, Michelle will know for sure, 7 years ago, somewhere in that range, 7, 8 years ago. It wasn't perfect to start with, but we're continuing to learn with it. And from my view on the board, what I've asked is, okay, they've done some studies, they've worked with a consultant this past year, said, okay, where can we get better? Where is it not working? Let's focus on that. So I don't think it's something to where you just do it for a short period of time and say, oh, this don't work, scratch it, let's go on. My view is, what are we doing to make it better? You know, one of the things is communicating with parents about it. Why is it? Why are we doing it? How is it great? How is it go from middle school to high school to correspond to letter grades, things of that extent. So I think that's what's been cool for me to see is what our administration and our teachers are doing to try to improve on the system, continually to make it better. That's where I would say, okay, it's not perfect now. What do we got to do? And if you're not continuing to try to improve something, then, you know, what's the point of doing it? So it has been a good learning for me to see. And again, I think it's something that we need to continue to educate our parents on as far as why it's important and how it's working. So.
I have a mixed answer. I went into last year fully against it. I'm going to be honest. I attended the advisory board, as she said, learned a lot more. I think that me being against it was from a lack of knowledge on my part. So as I learned more, I researched more, I learned more about it. I found some sources online that I could understand, look at the data on how it's helping our students learn. I have seen my daughter, who's in 5th grade this year, who's struggling in math, and she brings these sheets home, and she has a circled number on her sheet, and we go through each of her wrong answers, and we figure out why she got those wrong. And there's a piece on there where they need to reflect on why was I getting these answers wrong, and what am I going to do different? And I think that reflection piece is really valuable for students. So I'm seeing and understanding. I feel like I still need to hear more from our educators and how it's working for our teachers and how maybe it's not working, I don't know. And the last piece I want to say is, how are we getting that formative assessment and that summative assessment as they move into upper high school and get ready for college? Because we also have students in higher education who expect to get to redo things over and over in college, which they do not.
Okay, we're at the point of closing statements.
That'll be a long,
And we'll start with Rick. So you can say all those things you did say in your open statement.
I'm not gonna thank anybody. Challenges for our district include, I mentioned some of this earlier, attracting and retaining the best teachers, coaches, and staff, dealing with affordable housing shortage in Mount Vernon, the lack of affordable daycare, threats to our free speech constitutional guarantees, and trying to manage Mount Vernon's largest community-wide economic enterprise, the Mount Vernon Community School District, with ever decreasing state support. Those are our challenges. Public education has played a continuous and continues to play a large role in my life. Here in Mount Vernon, we work very hard to give our students the best teachers, the best curriculum, the best programs, the best facilities, in short, the best education possible. We are doing very well here in Mount Vernon School District. Our open enrollment numbers, the success of our graduates, the prosperity of our town are all indications we are all on the right path. I want to help keep us on that path. Please vote on November 4th in our citywide elections. Thank you.
I think what I want to end with is just, I have 3 of the most incredible little humans that I get to be the mother of, and they're back there because their dad had to go to work tonight, and so we brought them to hang out for a little bit. But I think the most powerful thing about being part of something like this is recognizing the interconnectedness between my children's wellness and this community's wellness. I know that when my kids are well, it makes this community more well. And I know the reverse of that is true. When this community is well, when this school district is well, my kids are much more well. And I have a very, very vested interest in those 3 little humans, but because I have such a vested interest in those 3 humans, I have a very vested interest in all of these humans. And I think that there is so much importance and power in recognizing that interconnectedness, because it helps you realize that we really can make this a little bit better, a little bit at a time, by really caring in these small little pockets. And that's what I've done for 20 years of my career and my work, and I would be very happy to do that here for the Mount Vernon Board. Thank you.
I guess in closing, being involved in agriculture, I use the saying, grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And, Rick talked about the problems that we'll continue to face, and every school district will face that. And one of the things that I think we don't do enough is realize the good things that we have here and the things that are going on. I talked about some of the challenges we'll have, but they're no different than anybody else. Meredith talked a little bit about, the marketing aspect, and we get caught up in so many of the negative things that we don't realize all the good things that we have here. When I'm able to go to a football game and seeing the numbers in some of these other schools' bands, and then looking at our band that's out there, seeing the numbers in some of these schools' cheerleaders, and then looking at our cheerleaders that are out there, every aspect of that, it is so cool. And so I think one of the things that we have to continue to do is continue to focus on how good it is here, and make sure that we're presenting that culture to everybody, and make sure that people feel welcome, because it's too easy to think that the grass is always going to be greener on the other side of the fence when you don't have any other experience to show for it or to compare it with. So that's one of the things I try to be positive about on the board, and hope to continue to do moving forward. So
I love our students and our community. I am passionate about Mount Vernon and the success of our schools. I think that I will work hard and do a good job. And I think if you agree with my stances, and I would love your vote. And otherwise, I think any of these folks up here will do a fantastic job. So thank you for coming tonight.
I am going to use some of my time to thank you guys for being engaged and coming out. Maybe this is your entertainment for the night, I don't know. I think the most exciting thing is that people step up to serve their community, and this isn't a comfortable thing to do per se. So thank you for that. I want to shout out to Tim, who we're hiring an agriculture teacher, and that's something that he came in with that he was passionate about. So it's cool to see that come to fruition. We really have a pro here in Mount Vernon, not just the school district, I think the whole city. And I don't think we can take it for granted. I think, anytime we get comfortable, things slip by. So I think it's very important that even though we're doing really well, that we keep fighting for it and we keep working towards it and keep looking at ways to make it better. I think anyone here at this table can do that. I don't think there's a magic recipe for it. I think it's, we have a great functional board and great school leadership. So let's sustain that and try and grow the best we can.
Okay, I think Marty has closing statements. Do you want to close them now?
Sure, let's do Before I have a couple of closing comments, but I want to remind you that early voting began today in Lynn County, and there's lots of places where you could go satellite voting besides the election office in Cedar Rapids, auditor's office. Lindale Mall has voting, I think 11 to 6:30 p.m., except for Mondays, and it even has a couple Sundays in there. Kennedy High School has one voting day on the 17th, and the Lab Library, who knew that's what the Cedar Rapids Library was called? Oh, where's the lab? But that's the Cedar Rapids Library. They have some satellite voting too. So there's little papers back there, really pretty colored things that I cut out today. So they have the number and everything to call on the website, just to look and see. There's lots of places, I think, where you can vote. Absentee ballots, those requests have to be in the office on the 20th. Not postmarked on the 20th, but in the office. And so you can return those on November 4th by 8 p.m., but not just with a postmark, but actually in the office or in the little mail slot outside. Okay, so, gosh, this is going to be a tough decision, you guys. You guys are great. I heard a lot of talk about successful communication with your children and your spouse, so might be too late for my kids, but I still have a spouse, so it's like, that's what we can do. And thank you to everybody here for conducting yourself in such a civil manner. This is such a great opportunity we have to come together in a decidedly nonpartisan way and figure out what to do. So the Mount Vernon Lisbon unit of the League of Women Voters is a very small but a mighty group. We provide candidate forums, learn with the league sessions, and numerous voter registration events. We recently did voter registration at Lisbon and Mount Vernon High Schools, and we had over 57 kids that we registered. Pretty excited, and they're all pretty excited too. Nervous, but very hopeful. So if there's any way that any of you would like to help us out, even though there's 20 of us, we bring some big ideas to life, just like the big leagues do that have 80 or 100 members who do a nice job of that. So if you'd like to join us, there's a sign-up sheet back there. I promise I won't hound you forever, but I will be in touch with you. We do have a candidates forum for the Mount Vernon Mayoral and City Council next Wednesday, the 22nd, at City Hall at 7 p.m. And then in December, we're hosting in partnership with Cornell, Becca Eastwood from the Iowa ACLU is going to come on December 3rd and discuss the whys and hows of developing a communicated relationship with your elected officials. I've heard her speak before, she's quite good to do that. And thank you to the staff of the Mount Vernon School District. We couldn't do this without you, and this facility is so beautiful. We love it here. And thank you to all the volunteers that made this idea a reality. Please wave. Thank you, volunteers. Thank you. We appreciate you so much. And thank you to the community that turns out for events like this. It's a little lower turnout than the last time we had one with 248 people. This is okay. This is okay. And for your turnout to vote, we have really good numbers out here. Less so in local elections, so I'm hoping that you will get out to vote and take your neighbors to that too. It's really where your vote probably has the most weight is in a local election versus a presidential election, is that your vote counts for a lot. So let's show the rest of the county how much we value voting by flooding the polls. I said something not as nice, but I'm going to say it that way. By flooding the polls on the board. And last but not least, thank you to the candidates. We know you're not doing this for big money, or for the glamour, or the fame, or to get away from your family for a little bit. It's hard work. And if anybody remembers the League of Their Own and Jimmy Dugan, remember Coach Dugan? He said, of course it's hard work. If it was easy, everybody would do it. So thanks for doing the hard work that most of us won't. The candidates will stay behind for a few minutes. Remember, your vote is your voice in government, so we urge you to make that heard in the polls on November 4th. Thank you, and safe travels. Thanks. Bill's got something about voting.
Just because I work the polls and people get real confused where they should vote. And in the olden days, we all did school board at Mount Vernon City Hall. That's not how it works anymore. So you may want to look where you should vote, because someone like me who lives in the country, I will vote in Lisbon for Mount Vernon School Board. That's it. So that gets confusing. So if you aren't sure, they've got these QR codes back there. Check it out ahead of time so you're not, I would love to see you no matter which place you go. But some people don't like going back and forth. So you might check out the two places in Mount Vernon, rural Mount Vernon, and we'll give you. Thanks.